How's it going, listeners? I am the man known as Danty, and you're listening to the MMAMotion podcast, part of the home for MMA fanatics, MMAMotion.net. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMAMotion podcast, episode 2. There's a lot of news to get into, so let's just get into it. So I saw on Instagram that Lyoto Machida released a statement about his move to Bellator. So before I get into my thoughts about it, let's play a little bit of the statement.
Hello everyone. I'm here to announce a big change in my professional career. So I just want to let you guys know that my contract with UFC just finished and I moved to another event. I moved to Bellator, which is a great event. It's growing a lot here in the United States and around the world too. So thank you for all your support. I'm very grateful. I'm so grateful for UFC for all those years of working over there, of fighting.
So, as you can see here, his contract expired with the UFC, and now he's going to Bellator to see how many fights. I believe it's a multi-fight deal according to ESPN. Yeah. Oh, Ariel Helwani specifically. So it's interesting news, definitely. Definitely a good move on Machida's part. Even though the 185 division and the 205 division, which he received the championship in, is quite barren in fighters. Although in the 185 division, there's Adesanya, who's about to fight soon. Although Yoel Romero was most likely going to head to 205 to see how he does there. Yeah, both are pretty barren, and going to Bellator to, I guess, get some good deals, get some good fights going, get some good money flowing from all the fights, fighting new competition. Yeah, I think it's the best move for him. I just wonder how many fights he plans to do for this year and beyond. Since it's a multi-fight deal, it's not exactly clear how many fights he'll do this year, and it's kind of late into the year, so yeah, I would like to see how it develops from this point on. So good for him. In other news, Josh Barnett confirms his UFC departure. It looks like it was just a disagreement with the United States Anti-Doping Agency, or USADA. Yeah, there is a lot of controversy. Some viable, some with pretty backable reasons. Some a little bit over the top among the MMA community. I would say that there are some legitimate criticisms regarding to USADA's practices. When I was watching Jeff Nowitzki's interview with Joe Rogan on the JRE, he came across as a person who really cares about their fighters. My guess from how Josh Barnett thought of USADA, like when I read the quote here, their dogged insistence to punish me for what they absolutely knew was an issue of contamination was unethical. So I guess it's just a matter of the specificity of the rules. Yeah, have to know every single factor of the rules in order to be in the green while you're going through their testing processes. It is what it is. It's unfortunate that he had to choose this decision the way he did. So I'll be interested to see where he goes from here, possibly to Bellator or somewhere else. I wonder, as just a part of a bigger conversation, is about testing in general, about helping fighters as much as possible in order to put them in the clear healthily, and to make sure that the integrity of the sport is intact. whether you believe that taking steroids honestly matters when it comes to sport. Some say they do, some say it doesn't, because at the end of the day, it's entertainment. Where I fall on this issue is that ethically, steroids they can cause physical health and sometimes mental health, which would affect your body in the future, your mind in the future. So, in the case of fighters that want to take that risk and use them in the hopes of boosting their career in the short time that they have, to me, it just doesn't seem that much worth it, especially since there's a chance you might get caught and your entire record could be put up into question about legitimacy. I mean, the whole thing with Lance Armstrong, at least in his case, it was seen that there were some bicyclists that were on steroids as well, but they just weren't caught. Now, for UFC fighters, there's a little bit of controversy around some fighters that people would say are post USADA, which means that their performance isn't as crisp as they were before USADA was implemented. And this is just a hearsay, but they could look at their previous performances and decide whether or not they've taken steroids. And once USADA was implemented, something happened with their performance, so it leads you to suspect that they've taken steroids in their career, which kind of puts an asterisk to their accomplishments, saying this is 13-0 with steroids, or with this extra help that would have given them the boost, and if they didn't have it, their record doesn't seem that impressive. That's kind of the situation with John Jones's record. Whether you believe that it was either a contaminant or he actually took them willingly, or either they were spiked, the question still remains: would you consider John Jones's accomplishments legit, considering the possibility that he might have taken any kind of illegal substance during any of his fights? Now, I don't think he did. I'm not sure if he did. It's mostly speculation, especially around the recent positive test. But at the end of the day, it would just come down to natural versus synthetic athletes, whether we should just toss USADA aside and just let people take whatever for the sake of entertainment, or we should stay the course and try to assist athletes in any way possible to take the healthier, more natural path, so that they don't have to get busted or go through a process where there might be a stipulation in the rules where it might be an unfair ruling, or they're unaware of what they've taken, and they might get a huge penalty and might take some time off for what could be a promising career for them, especially if they have quite a promising record. So that would be my interpretation of Josh Barnett's situation. So I wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors, and the UFC moves on. So, on the topic of Bellator, however, I would like to discuss Rory and Gegard Mousasi. It will be, I believe, the first crossover fight. Yeah, champion versus champion, at least from different divisions fighting each other. So I'll definitely be tuning in for that, because I am a fan of both. Yeah, I believe Gegard Mousasi, uh, he kind of got a little bit cheated off his recent fight. I mean, his last fight in the UFC against Chris Weidman. Yeah, it was unfortunate how it went down, but it's good to see that he was able to get a rebound and become the 185 champion. So I would like to see how this comes out. Hmm. Now for Rory McDonald versus Gegard Mousasi, it would just have to come down to a battle of tactics and another X factor. Now for Rory McDonald, he has a history of just going down into the brink with fighters, most famously with Robbie Lawler, and in his championship fight where he won against Douglas Lima, he was basically fighting with one leg, which leads me to question how well can he defend himself if Gegard Mousasi chooses to do leg kicks as well. That'll definitely be a test for McDonald if he ever confirms that the fight, and it should be, and it should go smoothly. The conversation, yeah, I see on a few sites that they're in the works, so it should be a promising match. Now for Gegard Mousasi, I would have to look more into his fights. I only know him from the Weidman fight, but what I've seen from his championship match, the Bellator championship match, is he's quite explosive. He is quite commanding with his pace, and he likes to put in pressure. And he's quite adept in his grappling. What I would like to see is which fighter is most dominant in the ground game. When it comes to the stand-up game, it's a whole nother conversation. In his two fights with Lawler and then with Lima, he was getting quite pressured, especially in Robbie Lawler. Yeah, with Robbie Lawler, he was going tit for tat in the third and fourth round, as I remember the fight. And until the fifth fight, he kind of broke in his will quite a little bit. What I would like to... Yeah, in Robbie Lawler's fight, specifically in the third, fourth, and fifth round, you can see things starting to pick up. You can argue in the third and fourth round that they were going tit for tat. In the fifth round, Robbie Lawler was really punishing him with the exchanges, going top and bottom. And in the Lima fight, Lima was effectively punishing him with the leg kicks. I can only imagine what Gegard Mousasi would be able to do. In both stand up and ground game. I would like to see more of their fights, just so I can get a better understanding of how they work. And just to get to know a little bit of how they think as well. Because when I was watching their interviews, specifically Rory McDonald, the way he talked. In fact, I remember watching his interview with Joe Rogan when he did it way back in the JRE podcast. Yeah, he was quite cordial. He was really not what you expect from someone who was called the Red King. He was basically really laid back, cracked jokes, really nice, very generous. That's different from his persona, I think, which would make sense, from when he's doing press conferences. And it's just playing a character right now. The Red King kind of implies what you would think: barbaric, cold, stoic, a little bit psychotic. Yeah, and I just wonder how much of it is natural, how much of it is just staged just to beef up the fight. If it's 50-50, 75%, or 100%, in the sense that once the fight comes on, it's like a switch that goes on and off. Something like that would make you think that even though he's cordial in some interviews like the JRE, that kind of barbaric, stoic, cold demeanor is authentic. Which would mean he would have this mindset considering all the emotional factors that are a part of that. You would wonder how that will play a part in his fighting. Now with Gegard Mousasi, I would like to know more about his mind. I would like to see more of his interviews. He seems really cordial. Yeah, really laid back, but I remember his interview with Ariel on the MMA Hour before Luke Thomas took over and before Ariel went to ESPN. Yeah, it was quite a normal interview. He didn't try talking it up. He was just conversing like you would with an old friend. So I wonder, yeah, if he's like the kind of fighter who is the same outside and inside the cage, you know? Kind of like with Stipe. He's the same way outside and inside the cage. Although, with all that raging testosterone and fighting, a little bit of a monster comes out of you. It would be interesting to see how, I guess, as Gegard Mousasi fights a little bit more, and as I see more interviews of him, how he acts, and I can see more about how that carries into the way he fights in the ring. Octagon. Pardon. So that would be Rory McDonald versus Gegard Mousasi, so I'll be definitely looking forward to that. Now to keep on with Bellator, I see that Wanderlei Silva and Quentin Jackson is going to fight again. That would be interesting. Oh man, those two, I mean, they're going to be forever a hardcore favorite. I mean, the way that Rampage Jackson has his interviews and how Wanderlei Silva just stares down his opponents in those stare downs before the fights. It's nothing short of legendary. Wow. Now to see them try to go to fisticuffs on September 29th, it's going to be interesting. Now, with Wanderlei Silva, he's received quite a bit of punishment, as did Rampage Jackson. So I think it will just come to a battle of attrition. Who can hold up more with the damage? Whose chins are still there? Now, to talk about the larger conversation about Bellator's rise in the MMA rankings, or in the rise in opinion in the MMA community, I like to see this change evolve myself. I mean, it's no fun if there's only one person that's holding all the chips. Uh, Competition and struggle makes for a fun time in any sport and in any profession, I think. So I would like to see more success by Bellator with these big decisions and better matchmaking. So far, their matchmaking has been solid, especially with Fyodor Emelianenko and Frank Mir main event. The fights before that were spectacular, I think, and I believe a majority of them were either knockouts or submissions. I think the majority of them were submissions, and what's not to love? So they have a tight ship going. So I like to see them succeed more, definitely. And oh, that reminds me, in a few minutes, I would like to share with you lovely people. And oh, and that reminds me, in a few minutes, I'm going to have an interview with a. And that reminds me, now in a few minutes, everyone is in for a treat because I will be interviewing UFC lightweight fighter Josh Emmett. He's currently 7 in the. No. Oh, and before I forget, you're in for it. No, don't say before I forget. In a few minutes, I will be interviewing UFC lightweight fighter Josh Emmett, currently 6th ranked in the featherweight division. I was looking forward to this interview because, especially with Josh Emmett's performances this far, up to his most recent fight with Jeremy Stevens, he's a spectacular knockout artist, and he's definitely someone to look out for, especially in a stacked division like that. I would like to see what he and several other featherweight fighters in that division can do as the months roll by. So, hanging tight for that. So let's talk about UFC Fight Night Singapore. I was able to catch it in the wee hours of the morning. I'm a night owl, so I was able to catch it without falling asleep. It was quite interesting. A few knockouts here and there, which was exciting. Now to talk about Leon Edwards versus Cowboy Cerrone. I mean, before I heard about what Cowboy was going through during the press conference, all in all, he looked pretty good. He was the same fighter he always was. And Leon Edwards, he wanted to bring the fight to him, so he definitely did. I don't think it's too late. I don't think it's too late for Cowboy to keep fighting or to reach glory. I still think he can. It's just a matter of settling your feet and moving forward. So he's a hardcore favorite, definitely. He'll get some fights. I would like to see what he'll be able to do this with the up and comers. Yeah, I don't want him to forever become a gatekeeper. I mean, lest that happen. I would like to see what would he do. He's still in the top 10, if I recall correctly. hopefully Cowboy can get the nutritionist help or the hospital help that he needs. Yeah, the hospital help that he needs. Yeah, whatever can help him get out of the rut. Maybe it was just one day that he got sick, so it was just a bad flip of the coin there. But if not, I hope he gets back to a winning streak because at this moment, we can't afford as MMA fans and for the UFC, you can't really afford any of your favorites dropping out or missing out on a card. Let me see if he's available. And he is. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce you to our first guest. No. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce you to. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Josh Emmett is about to set up his. All right, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like Josh Emmett is about to get ready for this interview, so let's get to it. It's good to hear from UFC fighters like that are really hungry for championship gold and know what they want and know how to get there. So I'm glad I was able to have that interview with Josh Emmett. So just to hear from UFC fighters themselves. And now, since we have a little bit more time, I would like to bring you my MMA thought of the day. This was something I pondered on and off when I'm writing articles or recording audio for MMAMotion. It's about MMA moves and the ethics of doing certain moves over others. I'm sure if you're in the MMA sphere, I'm sure you've seen Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's complaints about kicks to the knee. And his advocacy for making that illegal. I used to have the stance that after Yoel Romero did the same thing to Robert Whittaker in their first championship match, that hyperextending it to the point where you can't even walk on it anymore, you're going to be running out of a lot of UFC fighters and any MMA fighters if you keep doing that. So I can see where Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is coming from. However, there's another part of me that thinks that it's just part of the MMA game. You have to expect that any part of your body is a target. If they can see it, it's a target. So, as opposed to the ones that are forbidden in the unified rules, of course. You don't have to worry about that. And you have to keep that in mind. But I don't see why blocking knee kicks should be illegal when you could hit your head or hit the back of your neck. And although there are arguments where people won't consider that an argument because there's certain degrees to certain strikes. Sure, it's not as difficult to permanently injure someone if you attack the head because it will take a few shots for that to happen. However, at the end of the day, it is a dangerous sport. I would rather have him protect himself at all times than have the other opponent be, I wouldn't say handicapped, or compromised in his style, eh, much more than the unified rules already have. Just so that, in the same vein, grapplers are given an advantage because of the unified rules. I mean, to give any more advantage, it would be out of the uncanny valley of battle realism, even more than it already is. Because if you exclude groin kicks, eye gouges, scratching, it's not as realistic, but it comes pretty close. And another thing about the unified rules, I think it leads more to aesthetic. I mean, spinning back kicks, I mean, punches to the chest, the head. It's all allowed because it's beautiful, in a way. It's aesthetically pleasing as opposed to the primal, grimy, unsophisticated, lowbrow kind of battle when you involve scratching or biting or eye gouging, things like that. Something out of 28 Days Later. So I can see both sides of the argument. Where I lie is that fighters who are susceptible to these kinds of kicks just have to protect themselves better, or just either stay in that stance knowing that you'll be vulnerable to such kicks, or add to your arsenal so that you don't have to rely on a stance where your knees are that susceptible to damage. In a few minutes, I will be interviewing UFC lightweight fighter Josh Emmett, currently 6th ranked in the featherweight division. I was looking forward to this interview because, especially with Josh Emmett's performances this far, up to his most recent fight with Jeremy Stevens, he's a spectacular knockout artist, and he's definitely someone to look out for, especially in a stacked division like that. I would like to see what he and several other featherweight fighters in that division can do as the months roll by. Josh, thank you for joining us. So there was a lot of downtime since your last fight. I wanted to get your reaction to all of the events that took place. A myriad of developments in the featherweight division, including rare crossover moments in the featherweight champ Holloway planning to fight Khabib in UFC 223. After seeing all of this take place, specifically the commotion in lightweight and featherweight divisions, what is your impression of it all?
I guess it's kind of exciting, and as far as just being a fan of the sport, I think it's pretty neat and interesting, just because like everything that occurred with Khabib, all his opponents falling out, and then it was going to be the featherweight champion was going to go up to fight for the lightweight title. I just thought it was a good opportunity. It's a super fight. It's something the fans would want to see, and then as far as now Cormier is going up to do the same thing with Stipe. If he can pull off a win, I think Stipe has like the longest active heavyweight winning streak. So if he can go up, dethrone him, and then be the light heavyweight and heavyweight champion, it's great for him. It's his legacy, and it's just I guess a exciting time in the MMA world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. With all of this going on, once you make your return to the octagon, what did you see as the best focus in your career in light of all the events that occurred?
Um, really, my number one thing is just, getting healthy, recovering, and then, just getting back into the swing of things, back on track. This is what I do. This is what I love. So I just want to be on just a regular schedule with like my pro practices and just everything I do. And then, yeah, I'm hoping I can get a fight maybe the end of the year, maybe December or early next year, January or February.
Among these developments revolved around early weigh-ins. A few fighters who were significant draws in their respective cards missed weight. Now there's back and forth arguments about where the blame should be shifted on. What are your thoughts on this?
Um, I don't know. As far as I'm not too sure. Like as far as the afternoon weigh-ins, people still miss weight. The early morning weigh-ins, people are missing weight. I think there's a little more people that have missed weight with the early morning weigh-ins, but as far as I like the morning weigh-ins, just because we have more time to recover. As far as if there's that big of an issue, instead of it being like 8 to 10 or 9 to 11 a.m. weigh-ins, I think they should just keep it open and let people weigh in from like have a like 9 to 1 or 9 to 2 or something like that. But really, whatever they're gonna do, I'll still obviously cooperate and move forward.
Now, from what can be seen with differing opinions of fighters about these topics, including your own, is the wide spectrum of fighter mindsets. Something that I would like to call a fighter spirit. Something that guides you before, during, and after a fight. That guides your decisions off and on your career. So, what would you say describes your fighter spirit? What are things that guide you before, during, and after a fight?
For me, it's mainly just it all comes down to my wife, family, and friends. That's what motivates me. That's why I get up every morning and put in everything I possibly have leading up to the fight, just because I want to be able to provide for my wife and family and future children and stuff like that. And it's I love the lifestyle. I love being able to train and kind of have just like an open schedule when I want. I don't have a regular, 8 to 5, and so that it all comes down to family and stuff. Basically, what motivates me and the reason why I do this.
Absolutely. And following your career, it is shown to be like the prime example of a grind, auditioning for the Ultimate Fighter multiple times, getting a spot on UFC card against John Tuck on short notice. How does that fighter spirit manifest in the way you carry yourself in the MMA world, making yourself known?
Um, as far as that goes, it's I don't know. I'm just trying to show people too that there's it's cliche and everything, but I've put so much into this, and see Madeline, I put so much time into this, and I'm just I set goals, and I keep on pushing, and I keep on working and grinding, like you're saying, until I achieve them. And it's literally, this was my only thing as far as fighting. I got offered to fight in a lot of other promotions that are pretty big or trying to compete with the UFC, but my whole thing was, from when I started, it was UFC or nothing. And then I get in the UFC, I want to be a world champion. So I don't want to just get in the UFC to fight in the UFC. I want to be a world champion, be one of the best on the earth, and be able to make a good living and provide for my family and wife.
Absolutely, absolutely. Speaking of mindset, it is interesting to say the least, the clash of personas in Woodley and Covington, which is sure to be a potential match of the year. But there are constant debates in the MMA community that revolve around what makes a marketable fighter, what makes a proper MMA promotion, either having fighters that have the best fights or having fighters that have the best mic skills, or a little of both. What's your stance on this?
I think it's all just different. I think a lot of people, it used to be just like the best fighters fight the best fighters, but then it seems like since McGregor came around and some other fighters, it is entertainment. They know how to talk. They're good at it. They I don't know. They use their words to sell pay-per-views, to get bigger draws, which in the end comes down to more money for the promotion. And then when you get on that type of status, then you can demand more money for yourself as well. So I really think there's no right, there's no wrong way. It all comes down to the individual person. But as far as me, that's not me. So you'll never see me, talking a ton or anything.
Right.
I didn't get into the sport for that. I'm not an actor. I know it's entertainment, but that's where I want my fighting to be entertaining. And when people know that I'm on the card or I'm fighting, I want people to tune in and just know that they're going to be in for a hell of a fight and an exciting fight. And also just, it's just, I don't know. That's just on me. I feel like I just treat people how people treat me. So, it's, especially I can't, like, it's like you don't even know the fighters. So you see people all talking bad about all these fighters,
Right.
but it's like they don't know each other. So it's like, you're definitely not going to catch me talking bad about someone, like, especially how I don't even know them. So, but yeah, no right or wrong way, whatever you feel you have to do, or whatever, like, I don't know, whether it's like personality or character you're trying to portray or be, then just do your thing. But it comes down to, it's just every individual.
Now, when it comes to mindset, how much do you attribute that to what you were born with and the accumulative training and knowledge you've undertaken with fight gyms, including Team Alpha Male?
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of everything. That's just as far as it goes for me. Maybe it's something I was born with. Maybe it's something I developed as I grew up. It was just definitely had a tougher upbringing, and like I said before, I've never had anything given to me. I've had no handouts. Everything that I've achieved or accomplished is all because of my own doing, and that's why I feel like it's like self-made, and I just know what I want, and I know all the struggles and adversity that I've gone through to get to where I'm at, and I'm nowhere even close to where I want to be.
From what I gathered from your answers, would you say you approach the MMA world from a classic warrior's perspective, or do you have a business lens from which you look, or a little of both?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a business. I don't think we make enough money as it is for being, it doesn't get any higher than this. This is the NFL, the NBA of MMA. And so we definitely don't get paid enough. But yes, it's a business, like I said. So everything that I just know and this goes with any fighter, the better they do individually, the better anything that they're a part of is going to do. It's going to be more successful, whether they're trying to do, even if you go back to look at Uriah, the things he's done. He's had clothing companies, supplement companies. He's wrote a book. He's involved in multiple little businesses around, the community, Sacramento, plus other things outside of that, real estate and so on. So just really anything that if I do really great and I just win fights and I'm exciting and I get there and I win the title and defend it, I don't even have to really try, and things will just come to you. And it's crazy how this world works. When you don't need things, that's when you get handed out everything. But so I definitely look at it through a business lens. And but I also have, like, I really believe I'm one of the best fighters on this planet, and I just want to just keep on going there until I become the world champion.
Well, not to jump too far into the future, what would you say you would want to accomplish once you attained the status of a champion, either legacy-wise or business-wise?
Yeah, just kind of what's in front of me. It's just I just have to achieve that first. I'm not too far from that. I was right in line with my last one. I feel like if I would have won that fight, I was like one shot away from a title fight. I still feel if I go in there and win 1-2 fights, I'm right back to where I was at, and it's definitely in the near future. But I'm not even sure what I'll do. I'll continue to defend the title and and so on like that. But if something made sense and there was an opportunity to, go into a different weight class and fight for another title, of course, I think anyone would do that, especially if the money was right and it was another way to, cement yourself as one of the top fighters as well.
Well, I certainly do look forward to your returning match. Is there anyone in particular that you're planning to fight on your return, or is that to be determined?
Yeah, just to be determined. It depends who's fighting when I come back, who's available, things like that. I really don't. I never pick people out. It's usually they just, Shelby calls and says, "This is who we got for you," and so far every time I've taken fights and things like that. So no one in particular. Just want to get healthy first and then get back in there.
And with that, I would like to thank you, Josh Emmett, for this interview. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to interview with us, and my best wishes to your recovery.
Cool. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you. You have a nice
All right. You have a good one.
You too. Thank you so much for joining us for the MMAMotion podcast. If you'd like to hear more about the stories we discussed here today, please visit MMAMotion.net. Till next time.
You got to hold and give, but do it at the right time. You can be slow or fast, but you must get to